What's up, everybody? Mr. Turner coming to you live here this morning to make sure that you are understanding and you know what to do for your assignment today. So we're going to talk about population dynamics, especially the rabbit simulation. The rabbit simulation. So here we go. I'm going to do a little share of the screen here so that you can see what is happening with our rabbit simulation. So here you should see the rabbit simulator. First thing, we got our Google Doc link. Second thing is our rabbit simulation from the PhET simulator from the University of Colorado in Boulder. They make these awesome simulations. So I'm going to explain how to do this one. Below the simulator is our assignment preview, as well as you can get this by clicking on the Google Doc link to open the assignment up and get working on it. There's a little brief introduction about these rabbits. The purpose is to stimulate the growth of a rabbit population in order to understand the role of limiting factors and variation in maintaining or destroying the population. A couple things to note: brown rabbits camouflage with their surroundings, which allow them to avoid being eaten by the predators, the wolves, and white rabbits are easily spotted by the predators. Now, if you switch to a winter environment, obviously it's probably the reverse there, but just so you got an idea, we're going to use the brown environment for most of this. Short-toothed rabbits are not able to eat the food when it's provided. Only long-toothed rabbits can access the food. I think this is primarily for the tough food, but there's also limited food that you can add in there. So your procedure is you're going to go through and click run. You can add a mate or add a friend to start off the population's growing. And we're going to kind of repeat those steps starting over every time for 5 scenarios. So the first one, you're not going to change a thing. You're going to make a prediction on what will happen. You're going to click add a mate and start the process. Then you're going to tell me what happened and why did this happen. So for scenario number 1, we're going to choose lab. We're going to make our prediction of what will happen, and then we're going to add a mate. You can see our generation clock is ticking up top. And after the generation ends, boom, we're now on 1 generation. We now have 6 rabbits. And you can see down here on the graph, we have multiple rabbits. If you want to speed up the process a little bit, you can click and hold the fast forward button, which will get you speeding up a little bit. You can also pause it. Some of the scenarios are going to have you do something when it gets to the magical 50 rabbit mark. So it might have you add wolves or add different food, like if you want to do tough food or limited food, so there's not as much. Whichever one you want to choose for the different things, it will tell you along the way. It'll also have you add teeth or change fur color. In fourth quarter of last year, you guys talked a little bit about genetics and dominant and recessive genes. Dominant shows up more frequently if a dominant allele for a gene is there, it always shows up. If 2 recessors are there, it can show up if both are recessive, but if there's another dominant trait there, the recessive trait gets hidden. We'll talk more about that, especially as we move in to the next unit of evolution. This is kind of a recap of populations, as well as kind of getting into the idea of genetics and variation and evolution. So that's scenario number 1. After 50 wolves, once you finish scenario 1, tell me what happened, why it happened. I want 1 sentence for each box. Introduce wolves after the population gets above 50. So you'll see what happens there. You'll record it. Then you'll run it again. After 50 rabbits, you'll introduce food. You can either do the tough food or the limited food, whichever one you prefer, and see what happens. Scenario 4, you're going to go through and introduce fur mutations. So you're going to give it some brown fur, see what happens there. And then finally, scenario number 5, you're going to introduce long teeth after 50 rabbits are there. So probably around 4 or 5 generations, you're going to introduce long teeth and see how that long teeth mutation changes the population over time. Then you're going to answer 3 conclusion questions. Based on what you observe, what are some factors you believe to be essential for keeping the size of the population in check and not taking over the world? Because yes, your rabbits can take over the world here. That is not ideal, but it will happen at some point. Compare your scenarios 2 and 4 and 3 and 5 and tell me what happened in those different scenarios. And then based on your response for question number 2 up here, do you think variation or differences within a population are beneficial or harmful? Or it can kind of be both. You can just explain your thinking there. So I want 2 sentences for each there. And then finally, task 3, the bonus challenge. That's not really a bonus because you're going to do it. We are going to manipulate the simulation so that it never stops. The bunnies don't take over the world and the bunnies don't die out. So you're going to mess with the factors and try to get it to make it so the population never stops. It just keeps going. And then once you have it set and it's just going on forever, indefinitely, tell me what you have settings for there. So if you have fur mutations, tell me which fur colors you have. If you have long ears or short ears, tell me which one of those have. If the wolves are there, tell me which wolves are there. So you can kind of go through and answer that. So that is the gist of our assignment here. This will be due on Sunday night, but there is no reason why this can't get done during the class today. There is loads of time. And as always, remember to stay legendary and get your stuff done. Have a great day. Have a phenomenal weekend. And I will see you in a few.